The number one program of all time and space on the internet. It is Strange Universe Radio with your host, the Sean. There are you. That's the USC fanfare and fight song. So there you go. University of Southern California Trojan Marching Band, the greatest marching band in the history of the universe. And, of course, tomorrow is the big game, USC versus the evil UCLA Bruins. Oh, my God, they're so horrible. And why do UCLA football uniforms always look so small? Because that color just doesn't come in a men's size. By the way, it's kind of interesting on the news. They showed UCLA. They could not hold their pep rally because apparently they upped their tuition by like $6 a credit. So, of course, they're all rioting over on their campus. And they're rioting and they're smashing windows and they're turning cars over because they're basically just a lawless bunch of freakish weirdos. And so they couldn't have their bonfire. They canceled all their spirit rallies. They had some weird Asian guy who barely spoke the English language representing UCLA on the news, who was going, "Oh, we don't like USC because they come over and they mess up our bear. They screw with our bear." Well, that hasn't happened for like 10 years. They put a big box over their stupid bear, by the way. Of course, at USC, we have to wrap up the Trojan statue, Tommy Trojan. We have to wrap up the Traveler statue. We have to wrap up the statue of John McKay. We just basically got to wrap up all the statues. And at the same time, we got a bunch of very tough Chuck Norris like students who are all camping out around the statue to make sure that none of the UCLA Bruins mess with it. So they were going to burn their campus down because of this rate increase. And of course, then they go over to USC, and we've got a bonfire, and we've got the players, and we've got the song girls, and they've got a big thing in lights, a big fireworks display in lights that says USC on it, and we've got fireworks shooting up in the air, and giant pinwheels, and all this, and everybody's perfectly happy. And of course, at USC, we pay for their education, and we pay for ours because we're a private school. So thank you very much, UCLA, because we're paying for your education, you worthless husks of flesh. And they're writing because now we have to pay more. Oh, they're not going to let us suck off the government titty anymore. So there's that. And by the way, they're the school. They're complaining about USC at one point in the distant past somehow vandalizing their campus. It was one of their football players who took a cherry bomb and dropped it down a toilet and blew the toilet up. They never pointed to the fact that it was one of their football players that did it because they were the only ones that are there in the summer, who blew up the plumbing because it's so old and crappy at UCLA, and flooded the campus, 75 million gallons of water, which then destroyed the Poly Pavilion where they play basketball. They just spent $200 million of taxpayer money for them to put in new wood floor and rebuild this entire stadium, and now it's completely ruined. But that's the whole thing about, don't ruin your life. Oh, boy. Okay, so we got callers already? All right. Really? Who could this be? All right, 619. Why not? Let's just kick off Friday with a call. 619, because whatever's going on, it sounds like you're murdering something in your basement. Hi, 619. What's up? What's on your mind? Yes, no? Okay, going once. 619. Going twice. Did you want to speak? All right, Steve. You want to cut these people off? Thank you very much. Sorry, you had a chance. We wanted you to come in. All right, thank you. Yes, you've been ejected from the conversation. All right, I told you yesterday. Actually, we're talking astrologically about this. I just want to give you this again, just so as you know. And I told you that they were going to make this major announcement. Obviously, it was already scheduled, but let me see if I can find it again here. There it is. Okay, all right, here it is. So, from what we were talking about last night, I talked about how yesterday was going to be like a wise owl in a tree, peering out and observing. Negative imprint is going to be feeling restricted, stealing, making noise but saying nothing, surrendering to domination, jealousy, difficulty expressing feelings. But that the positive imprint is going to be rebirth, making melodies from sounds, consultation, choosing wisely, objectivity, contemplation, teamwork, and taking something to make it better. So specifically, what we were talking about is that it's going to be all of the planets are aligning, actually yesterday and today, in a special configuration that enables messages to be powerfully transmitted into the collective. So powerfully, in fact, that they shape the future. So what you saw from the Prezi of the United Stasi, the Fresh Prince of D.C., Barry Obami, the poser in chief, is I can't even, I mean, I don't know if you were as stunned as I was. Had he not couched what he was saying by saying, look, this is not a bipartisan call to arms. This is not about all of us working together. Had he not basically pulled out, quote, the big stick, unquote, excuse me while I whip this out, and now threatened to bludgeon the democratic system as we know it as a completely out of control monarch, which is in essence what he wants to be. I told you that it's that Leo. It's him thinking he's the Lion King. And no, that's not racist. He used that himself actually at the president dinner. But it's the force to spread the message that comes from Mercury the Messenger at the degree of the Sabian symbol that is a parrot listening and then talking, repeats a conversation he's overheard. So somebody told Obama to do this. Implies the mimicking what's heard and energetics to enhance the level of noise or dissonance that the message is going to stir up, coming from Saturn at the degree of a, quote, military band marches noisily through the streets, which is, again, Obama saying, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I don't care what the people think. But the potential to also enhance militaristic action also comes with this symbol. Now, this message that he gave, and I said this yesterday, had the ability to stir at the heartstrings. Oh, who wants to rip children from the arms of their parents? And let me point out that it was Obama was the one that said that the children could stay, but the parents have to go home. So it was him, actually, quite some time ago, that was the one that was responsible for ripping the children from the arms of their parents. So the Sabian symbol for that degree, I told you, was an Indian woman pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. Well, what do they call it? We call him the commander-in-chief, right? The fiercest force of all. Even the symbol of an Indian woman, these are Mexicans. These are all descendants of the Indians, of Chiapas and the Maya and the Aztecs and the Toltecs. But the symbol images the plight of children trying to make their way in a harsh world, unprepared for what they face, and a mother begging someone who has authority to determine life and death to spare them. Compassion tries to be invoked. And finally, the almighty power of emotion is added with the moon. At the degree of the symbol, a drowning man being rescued at the time of the message, a savior, a liberator, a defender, a guardian angel delivers salvation to those who are going under. And this is what Obama wants to present himself as. And again, I talked about if you wanted to deliver a message that has the power to affect the future of the world, would you do it under these energetics? Specifically at about 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is exactly what time Obama did this message, I believe. But such a message was scheduled to be delivered at that time from Washington, D.C. So the Illuminati astrologers chose very well. But I told you yesterday, there's a wild card here. An old owl up in a tree. The wise owls see what others miss. They see the setup. The message that Obama is giving is a game. He is trying to incite violence and rebellion. It's bold and pushes all the limits. It is pulling the pin on a hand grenade and tossing it into the Capitol building. It will play into other messages that are being delivered, messages that will also try to incite violence and rebellion. It's exactly what he's trying to do. All this man has done, it's all about, it's going to be hope and change, and it's all us together and all that stuff, and yet he is a master of the politics of division, of divide and conquer. Let's pit whites against blacks. Let's pick rich against poor. Let's pick salaried people against minimum wage people. It's an attempt to provoke, but it's not going to work the way that he or they at the top have intended, to basically do these sweeping changes, if you will. And by the way, let me just point out that Obama is just, I mean, you can, first off, is it just me that every time I see the guy on the TV now, I throw up in my brain? I mean, first off, he's talking about illegal immigrants when he's an illegal immigrant. He's never been, as far as I could tell, he's never been legally admitted to this country. There's absolutely no proof of him ever actually having been legally admitted to the United States of America, other than some forged birth certificates and other than Social Security numbers that he stole from, I don't know, old Frenchmen who'd retired in Hawaii. So he then says that I mean, a couple of points that I just want to make is that he talks about how, well, my doing executive orders on immigration are nothing different than weren't done by George Bush the first and Ronald Reagan and all that, which is just horse manure, shenanigans, balderdash, and horse feathers. There were immigration bills that were passed by the Congress and the Senate that were signed by the president, and then there were implementation executive orders that went along to supposedly implement the laws, which is what the United States is, which is what the president is supposed to do. The executive branch is supposed to oversee the carrying out of law. And for him to bypass the Congress and the Senate completely and simply say, I'm going to do all this by executive order, they're absolutely right. This isn't who exactly gave him the right to rule by fiat, an executive order to simply just go, well, this is how it's going to change. And again, notice he used some interesting words. He never said legal. He said lawful. And there is a difference between legal and lawful. I'm not quite sure what it is quite yet, but I know there's a reason why he used that particular word. But like all the moves of the Illuminati and all the moves of these guys this year, for example, if you remember at the beginning of the year, they tried to get us in war with Syria. That blew up in their face because Kerry said, because they asked him a question about, well, what would it take for this to not happen? And Kerry laid some things out, and the Russians said, okay, all right, we'll do that. We'll check this, we'll check that, we'll do the other thing. So that got blown out of proportion. There were supposed to be more boots on the ground, possibly in Afghanistan and Iraq. We've got ISIS now, which is basically just carving in a pipeline, and an excuse for us. And now the supreme leader of Iran is now saying that ISIS is a creation of the Mossad and MI6 and the CIA. But like all the moves that they've made this year, this one, I am telling you now, is not going to go the way they planned. Right now, because of shows like this, and let me blow my own horn here for a second. Let me reach around and pull my shoulder out of the socket, patting myself on the back, and everybody else out there that's in alternative media. Because that's why you listen to us. Not only are we commercial free, I know you don't give us money, I know you don't pay for us, I know you don't help us out. There's a few people that maybe get involved. We beg you every day to help us bring you the truth and help us bring you something that's not the usual tired old, right-wing Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Megyn Kelly, Ashley Banfield, or the left wing, the Rachel Maddows or the Joe Show or the Obermans or pick anybody in the rest of the press. We're trying to give you the truth. We're trying to give you not only the truth but a perspective of who profits here, because politics is money talking. War is politics by other means, and politics is money talking. Therefore, war is just basically money talking, but with guns and a stick. And if you're looking at what Obama's going to do, if you're looking at what's happening here, he wants to, in essence, he wants to open up the gates of hell to Mexico and South America. If you see what's going on down there, there's revolt, there's revolution, there's crime, there's gangs that are running everything. If you've had any experience with either living or staying for any period of time in Mexico, you understand the government. It's all graft and bribes, and it's pretty much like America. But humanity right now, all of us, because now the one difference has been that the alternative media somehow, some way, managed to get out of the box. God bumped into a shelf and we all ran out of the jar. And so humanity is like this parliament of owls. It's not a pandemonium of parrots, which is basically all these politicians are. They're a pandemonium of parrots. No disrespect to parrots, by the way. We love parrots. I mean, parrots are great. And if you look at the Congress and the Senate and all these guys, all they're doing is they're just parroting what their corporate sponsors and all their people want them to do. But when you have divine sources helping us see through the game into wisdom, then you become the Parliament of Owls. And all these things can be taken into the realm of our individual lives. The energy affects the macro level of global affairs as well as the micro level of interpersonal affairs, and we can apply this to our own lives. And today we practice the skill of being like wise owls in a tree, watching and ready to respond to all of this. And again, I can't give you any other opinion other than what's happening is unfair to the immigrants that willingly became part of this union, that willingly submitted themselves to this corporation, this government, that willingly came in and obeyed the rules and obeyed the law, who are now all going to be completely screwed. Now we're not talking about doing anything about defending the borders of the United States. We're just basically saying everybody that broke the law. There is no defense to this. There is none. It's the word illegal is in there somewhere. Although we do have something. Steve, you ready with that? After Obama's action and after he signs the executive order, we do have. You ready to play it? All right, we're good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you the national anthem of the United States of America. My fellow Americans, thank you for coming to Taco Bell. I just want to say it's so nice that I finally have health care. And I'm glad I can come to this country. Thank you for paying for my education and for the education of all my children and for free medicine. I am very happy that I am treated better than veterans who served your country. We get health care, we get dental, we get free education. I don't have to work no more because we get welfare. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank all the people of America for letting us in for free. And all it took was for me to sneak in and come across a tunnel and break all your laws. All right, they get the point, is it? All right, there you go. All right, so there you have it. So that's my opinion. My opinion is, really? Okay, just because I'm not pissing off enough people. And so today we're talking about illegal immigrants. Yesterday we were talking about homosexuals in Idaho. Come on, seriously. I have to do this joke. Are we going to call gay people in Idaho? What are we going to call them? What, Idaho Mo's? Is that what we're going to call them now? Oh, God, I'm so awful. All right. Anyway, look, what are we going to be able to do to stop Obama? They're talking about suing him. They can't impeach him. This is exactly what he wants. He wants him to try to impeach him. The people who support Obama are zombies. They're just zombies. They're mindless. They're mindless. They're brainless. I asked these people, what has he done? And give me one thing that he's promised he's going to do. He's brought more war. He hasn't closed Guantanamo. He hasn't made the government more transparent. I mean, give me a list. Give me a list of anything this guy's accomplished. And let me tell you what's going to happen as well. Not only does he doesn't want anything to get done the next 2 years. He doesn't want the Republicans to accomplish anything. And this is his way of doing it. If they're so jacked up about immigration and about what he's going to do as far as immigration goes, then they're not going to be able to basically work on any other legislation. They're not going to be able to work on anything that could possibly override him. As I said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till if he manages to ram through this Loretta Lynch woman as Attorney General. This woman has confiscated over $1 billion, close to $1 billion of people's assets, and she thinks it's perfectly fine. So, you have no idea the amount of mischief and trouble. And here's my question to you. Have you ever seen, for those of you that support, Mungo Berry, have you ever seen a president that's more at war with the people of the United States? Ever? Ever. Have you seen a president that's more at war against the people of the United States, that has been more for foreign interests, that foreigners are more important, illegal aliens are more important, he doesn't care about the border, he shipped guns to these people, it's gobstopping. It's awe-inspiring. It's just awe-inspiring to the point of sheer lunacy. And if it wasn't so evil, and if it wasn't about supplanting the entire culture of the United States, we're talking social, politically, otherwise, and bankrupting the United States. Please let me remind you that Rome did not fall because of some military force. Rome fell from within. Rome fell because the Visigoths showed up and ate the Roman Empire out from the inside. Of course, Christianity had a lot to do with it as well, because Christianity, with all of its kind of like, ooh, let's just forgive everybody and all that, the Roman Empire survived for about 700 years because if you messed with them, they nailed you to a tree and let you hang there till you were dead, or hit you with rocks. But it's one of those one of those things. All right, we got all kinds of, and by the way, the other thing yesterday that I was talking about, that if there is not open rebellion by the Republicans, and if they do not defund everything, because here's what's going to happen: the Republicans are just going to sit there because now they control the committees. Now they can get all the stuff out of committee. They don't have Harry extra in The Walking Dead zombie Reed anymore to control the committees, and they can take every single committee, every single federal agency that actually funds anything from work permits to anything else, and just defund it. However, here's how they're going to get around that. They're just going to, what they'll do is they'll just up the fees for the work permits, and they'll make them like $1,000 or whatever, and they'll just fund everything through the actual fees themselves to be able to try to find a way to get around Congress funding anything. So, and Obama was managed to put all the crap that he wanted into these omnibus spending bills. So if you didn't vote for his junk, his absolute malarkey, you shut the government down. Well, now they're going to be able to parse that out and be able to vote those just up or down and not defund the government now that the Republicans are in charge. And by the way, the Republicans did present they did present an immigration reform bill that Obama just wouldn't sign. So, he wanted this impasse. They had chances to fix this over and over and over again, but once again, these are the politics of division. These are the politics of divide and conquer. These are the politics of legals versus illegals and white versus black and Hispanic versus everybody else, putting their whole base together. And once again, if Mitch McConnell is going to be complicit with Obama and the executive amnesty, if they don't pull out all the stops to block them. And another thing is that if the Republicans just wait until January, the Supreme Court is going to rule again. There's 36 states now, I believe, 36 states that do not have exchanges set up, that need to petition for executive amnesty. And despite polling that has found that a plurality of Americans do not want Obama to act alone on immigration, he said that, quote, "The president has heard the cry of the American people." Sharpton said Obama's executive amnesty will go down as historic. Is this helping black people, by the way? This. First off, Al Sharpton, shut up. Shut up, you scumbag. You don't represent black people in this country. It's just, and let me just read you some of the posts, some of the tweet posts. "And black people will suffer most." Thank you. This is from Snapper Man. Let me just read you the post underneath this. "The economic fortunes of African Americans will not improve as we have a failed urban public education system in combination with a social welfare apparatus which disincentivizes that's not even a word. Disincentivizes work and therein advancement, and it is the middle class which will bear the burden of illegal immigrants in the form of a lower standard of living and an ever-expanding welfare state." Yes, from Camp 50. "The rule of law will be destroyed, and the lawlessness left will cause misery for all, starting with the racist Reverend Al Sharpton's lawless, murderous protests and riots," all of which he supports, by the way. Al Sharpton praises Obama. "Just shut up and pay your taxes like Whitey do." Because he praises Barry, he doesn't have to. "The U.S. Constitution is under full assault and attack by the Communist Democratic Party. They are mocking the DNA of our nation, and they will pay with their lives for doing so." Where was the IRS, Eric Holder, and the Justice Department on Al Sharpton, Rangel, and other congressional cheats in recent years? Silent for political reasons. That's Chef 013. Winston Smith says, from 1984. I love that. "They were totally immersed in their white victimhood and afraid of Barry, Mocha, Val, and the Attorney General. Wonder if the IRS will audit Al Sharpton." "No way. He's a bro," says Winston Smith. "The Philly charlatan has become an bro. Guess that makes him bulletproof or an enemy of the state. He is golden if he doesn't P.O. Moochie Mama or the Val. He's just the W.H. crazy undo. Oops, that's Joe Biden's gig." So, those are and now, of course, this is Breitbart.com actually talking about that, but it's, and if you just click the links, for example, Obama's defending amnesty here. He went on Facebook to say, and here's Obama, and he reflects on his historic immigration reform speech by reminding Americans why he had to give illegal immigrants amnesty. Again, please, the word illegal. Illegal. Let me repeat that. Illegal. Obama explained he understood that most Americans were frustrated with people who were breaking the law and cutting the line by coming into the country. with a soft piano soundtrack in the background, all jazzy and bluesy. Obama helpfully explained to Facebook viewers that it just comes down to people. You hear stories about young people who were brought here when they were 2 or 3 years old, are as American as any of us in attitude and love of country, but don't have the right papers. As a consequence, they can't apply for scholarships or they can't travel because they're fearful that it might mean that they'll be deported. Yeah, because they're here illegally. What you realize is that's not what America's about. Okay, well, first off, America is a made-up concept. Obama asserted that his unprecedented executive decision was a common-sense solution that most Americans would believe in. Really? Really? Okay, because obviously you can see by the last election that that's not, in fact, the case. All right, I'm not going to make this into a political show. Strange Universe usually isn't a political show. It's a show about attorneys who are probed for hypnotizing female clients. You can't make this stuff up. An Ohio lawyer is now under criminal investigation for hypnotizing a female client during a meeting and directing her to engage in a series of sexual activities while in a trance and under his hypnotic control. I think you ordered that from out of the back of a comic book. Remember, with the Charles Atlas thing? They used to sell the X-ray glasses in these courses in hypnotism. The probe of Michael Fine, 57, was detailed yesterday in an emergency court motion filed in the Lorain County Bar Association, which is seeking an immediate suspension of the lawyer who's been practicing for 30 years. According to the court records, a second woman recently told police that she believed that Fine sought to, no relation to Larry of the Three Stooges. Wow, what are you talking about, Mo? Hypnotize her during meetings in his office where the pair discussed the woman's divorce case. Now, under hypnosis, can you make somebody do something they don't want to do? I think the criminal part is he hypnotized her, had sex with her, and then she had to pay him. I think that's what she's mad about. Because if you listen to guys who have bad dates, a guy will tell you a bad date about how terrible the girl was and how crazy she was and how all she talked about her cat was her 20 cats or her insane ex-boyfriend or any of that stuff. Every girl that tells you a story about a bad date, no matter how bad the date is, oh my God, he was a serial killer, and then he locked me in his car, and I finally got out of the trunk, and I managed to escape through the road and find a policeman. And every story, no matter how bad it is, always ends with, and he made me pay. That's girl stories. And he made me pay. As detailed in an affidavit prepared by an investigator, Jane Doe hired Fine last year to represent her in a child custody matter. The woman recently contacted cops to report that she had strange memories and feelings. After a certain, for some reason, I think he made me dance like a chicken. After a series of meetings with Fine that occurred in his office in a conference room at the county courthouse, she would be unable to recall substantial portions of the meetings, and afterwards she would realize her clothes and her bra were out of place and had been moved, and her vagina was wet, reported Richard Thomas. Richard Thomas? Really? That's the guy's name? Investigator Richard Thomas? I wonder if there's a brother named John. After being told by cops that more definite evidence was needed, the woman recorded her next two telephone conversations with Fine and provided the tapes to police. Thomas, one of the October recordings, begins with a discussion of the woman's court case, but when Fine learns she is alone, he places her in a trance. What follows, quote, is of an explicit sexual nature wherein he induces her into multiple orgasms. Wow. The Bar Association motion charges that Fine used code words to induce Jane Doe to enter a trance-like state. Yeah, probably like affidavit and whatever. Liz Pendens. Well, his client was hypnotized. I know lawyers hypnotize me. I fall completely asleep when they talk to me. He was being made love to. Fine told her she was, quote, being made love to by the world's greatest lover, and that he was her teacher. And the attorney also assured Jane Doe that she will appear normal and only remember their discussions regarding legal matters. And putting Jane Doe into a trance after a short conversation about her case, during the call, Fine told the woman that he would cause her hominess and arousal and excitement and a life-changing experience. Well, the Bar Association complaint adds that Fine also told the woman that their encounters were, quote, a secret and no one's going to know, right? Fine, who directed the woman to bring a vibrator to their next office meeting, ended the call by saying, You'll only recollect what we were talking about in your case until we see each other tomorrow. Do you understand? And agents were monitoring the sting operation. Fine begins sexual dialogue explaining sexual acts that he will do for her, holding and massaging her hand and rubbing her shoulders. The woman reported that in her after-hour meetings with Fine, he would comment on her looks and physical appearance and asked about the nature of her sexual activity with her husband, including whether they had rough sex. And she felt the loss of time during the meetings, as she cannot recall how so much time passed during the meetings for what she remembers. This guy's charged by the hour, too. This is a pretty good trick, actually. You can hypnotize somebody into forgetting what time it is, and that'll be $1,000. Jane Doe told the Bar Association that she felt creepy and disgusted by Fine's conduct and was sick that he picked her out after she was so upset and distraught about her marital situation when she went to him. In seeking Fine's immediate suspension, the Lorraine Bar Association argues in its Ohio Supreme Court that the attorney poses a substantial threat of serious harm to the public. Fine is married to a court reporter and is the father of 2 daughters. So and you can make this stuff up, actually. You just can't. The man identified as the shooter who opened fire in the Florida State University. No, it wasn't Jameis Winston, although he's dumb enough to do that. He was a former prosecutor. He was a black prosecutor who wore a bow tie, actually. Looked like a security guard for the Nation of Islam. But he descended into paranoia and recently posted on Facebook about being encouraged by your handler to kill. Myron May's family and friends described him as a good person who had just moved back home to open up his own law practice and put some troubles behind him, in quotes. Police say the 31-year-old was in a state of crisis and believed he was being targeted by the government. May's Facebook page showed he was interested in targeted individuals who believe that they are victims of mind control and covert harassment that they call gang stalking. Has anyone ever been encouraged by your handler to kill with a promise of freedom? May wrote on November 14th on a Facebook page for a group called Targeted Individuals International.
That sounds like the plot of Saw.
It does, doesn't it? Not only that, but just because this guy, he feels like paranoid, he feels like he's being targeted, he goes to a group for help with that, and now they're saying because he went to the group, he went out to go kill people. So they're trying to actually, it sounds to me like in this press release, which is of course on NBC, which stands for nothing but crap, NBC News, they're basically saying that because the guy reached out to this group, it's like the group's fault that he went out and killed people. So it's unknown why May chose Florida State University for his attack, other than, Jameis Winston's an idiot, in which he shot 3 people before being killed by police, but he graduated from the school in 2005 with an economics degree. Then he got a law degree from Texas Tech and practiced law in Texas before moving to New Mexico to work as a public defender in Las Cruces and then a prosecutor at the Doña Ana County District Attorney's Office. So this wasn't just some black guy, cannibal, hobo, nut job, crackhead, this guy. This was a successful, upperly mobile black American and African American. And now look what, we've had the guy at the Navy Yard shooting. We've had the woman who shows up with the baby at the White House. You've had a whole series of assassinations of very upwardly mobile, upper middle class Afro-Americans here. He was an effective prosecutor who was deeply committed to his work and serving the public while employed at our office, said the DA's statement. 3 weeks ago, May went back to Florida, where he had been raised by his grandmother, starting at age 13, in the hopes of passing the bar and hanging a shingle. Those close to him said he wanted to come back to his roots and open his own practice here, said David Tauntaun. Yes, like the Star Wars beast. He was supposed to take the Florida bar exam in February. We were basically providing him with emergency shelter until he could get on his feet. He was having some financial difficulties. He stayed with us through Friday, and we haven't seen him since. There's no way to explain something like this, but he was a good person, who apparently then just snaps. May's cousin, Cedric Lennox, said that he'd been a role model, a bright student who ran track and field, went to church on Sundays. I know he's having trouble before girlfriend issues. I thought he came home because he wanted to start a new chapter. Whatever those personal problems, May did not seem unhinged when his cousin saw him. In fact, Lennox, a middle school teacher, invited him to speak to his students. He said, I can't do it this week, maybe after Thanksgiving. I said, I love you, cuz, and he said, I love you too. Lennox said his mother saw May at church a couple of weeks ago. He said, I'm glad I'm home. But other postings pointed to a paranoid streak. On the Targeted Individuals International page, he wrote that he was a lawyer and was mulling legal action the next day, November 15th. He announced he had formed a group for every TI who wants to pursue a class action lawsuit. All right, do you have a caller, or was that just have somebody online?
No, I don't know what you're hearing. I don't hear nothing.
That just seems kind of weird. All right, now e-cigarettes can give you malware. So better for your lungs, worse for your hard drives. E-cigarettes can now potentially infect a computer if they're actually plugged into charge. So all of you doing these vapor cigarettes, it's pretty crazy. You actually plug these into a USB port, and they charge up your vapor cigarettes. But e-cigarettes are now, they may be better for your health than normal cigarettes, but spare a thought for your poor computer. Electronic cigarettes have now become the latest vector for malicious software, according to online reports. So e-cigarettes can literally give your computer cancer. All these e-cigarettes can be charged over USB, either with a special cable or by plugging the cigarette itself directly into a USB port. That might be a USB port plugged into a wall socket or the port of a computer, but if so, that means that a cheap e-cigarette from an untrustworthy supplier gains physical access to your computer. A report on social news site Reddit suggests that at least one vapor has suffered the downside of trusting their cigarette manufacturer. One particular executive had a malware infection in his computer from which the source could not be determined. After all traditional means of infection were covered, it started looking into other possibilities. The made-in-China e-cigarette had malware hard-coded into the charger, and when plugged into a computer's USB port, the malware phoned home in China and infected the system. Rick Ferguson, a security consultant for Trend Micro, says the story is entirely plausible. Production line malware has been around for years, infecting photo frames, MP3 players, and more. In 2008, for existence, a photo frame produced by Samsung shipped with malware on the product's install disk. Even more concerning is a recent proof of concept attack called Bad USB, which involves reprogramming USB devices at the hardware level. Very widely spread USB controller chips, including those in thumb drives, have no protection from such reprogramming, says Berlin-based firm SR Labs, which released the code. Combine the two, says Ferguson, and a very strong case can be made for enterprises disabling USB ports or at least using device management to allow only authorized devices. For consumers, it's a case of running up-to-date anti-malware for the production line stuff and only using trusted devices to counter the threat. Dave Goss of London's Vape Emporium says that vapors can remain safe by buying from respected manufacturers such as Aspire, Kangaroo Tech, Innokin, and by checking for scratch checkers on the box, which mark out authentic goods from counterfeits. Any electrical device that uses a USB charger could be targeted in this way, and just about every one of these electrical devices will come from China, he adds. In early November, figures obtained by the Press Association revealed that e-cigarettes and related equipment, such as chargers, were involved in more than 100 fires in the next 2 years. So you can not only will it give your computer cancer, but you can also die from smoking in bed because it'll light stuff on fire, which I think is, just don't smoke. It's bad for you. All right, one of my absolute all-time favorite protest groups, and I bet it's yours too. There's there's an activist group which is called Femen, F-E-M-E-N. I'm sure it's pronounced differently in French, but it's Femen. Have you ever heard of Femen? I know. I know they're going to be your favorite group as well.
No,
they're yes, okay. Because what they do is that they show up places, they put on black hoods, and it's all women, Femen, and they take off their tops and they protest topless, which is not a big thing in France, by the way, because you go to the beach. You go to the beach and women, are always topless at the beach. Titties are not a big thing in Europe. Here, I don't know why bazengas, golden bozos, whatever you want to call them, are just a huge deal. Men just go, your brain just stops. But topless female activists in France have now apparently kidnapped a priest. Lucky him. Can I volunteer for that job of priest? They're protesting the upcoming papal EU Parliament visit. Baklava-wearing topless activists put a hood over the priest and bundled him into a waiting car. Again, I just wanted to be an undercover agent in disguise for that particular gig. However, the whole thing could be just a stunt by Fee-Man. The video shows the priest talking, perhaps trapped in a conversation with a girl wearing a blue hooded coat as a dark car pulls up and the Fee-Man members get out of the vehicle. They grab the priest's arms, bundle him into the car, at which point one of the members puts a dark sack over his head. The word Fee-Man is clearly visible across the girls' backs as they kidnap the priest. God is not a magician. The Pope is not a politician, reads a message in the Fee-Man video. The group says that it is defending secularism against, quote, the attacks of the Vatican, unquote. And in a message accompanying the video on Facebook, the group accuses the Vatican and the Pope of the criminal religious occupation of Europe, adding that the invitation issued to the Pope by the EU Parliament identifies the organization as an enemy of secularism and of freedom. I don't even know how to do their voice, but we promise to treat the hostages well and provide him and everything that is necessary while he's in our hands, while he's in our hands /breasts, while he's in our breasts. Unlike religion, feminism is peaceful, they said while they're kidnapping somebody. While the language of the video is in French, it is not immediately obvious where the kidnapping took place and whether indeed the priest was real or whether the kidnapping was just a big publicity stunt. But on November 15th, the group engaged in action outside the Vatican, simulating anal sex with crucifixes to protest the Pope's alleged meddling in politics. And in February 2013, 8 female activists stripped down in Paris's Notre Dame Square. Steve.
Yes?
You know how that lawyer hypnotized that woman into having sex with him?
Oh, do I ever?
You're supposed to say no, Sean.
Oh, no.
He used the penal code. I'm sorry. Okay. Kevin Shaw, my Canadian buddy, wrote that joke. So he was also the one that came up with Idahomans. I thought that was, I don't know, what we're supposed to call homosexual people from Idaho. Idahomos? I don't know what they're called. A secret society at Yale University, known as Skull and Bones, in the United States, is now being sued over the remains of an Apache Native American warrior. Descendants of the Apache chief Geronimo believe that 90 years ago, a group of students, including George Bush's grandfather, Prescott Bush, opened their ancestor's tomb and stole his skull to use in fraternal rituals for Skull and Bones. Now Geronimo's relatives want his body back to give it a proper burial. I believe strongly from my heart that his spirit was never released. Harlan Geronimo, the chief's great-grandson, said. The lawsuit filed on Tuesday, the 100th anniversary of Geronimo's death, also names U.S. President Barack Obama and Defense Secretary Robert Gates as defendants because the chief's remains are supposed to be kept on a U.S. Army base. Geronimo was a prominent Native American leader who fought against U.S. and Mexican expansion into Apache tribal lands back in the 19th century. He was captured by the U.S. in 1886 and died in prison in 1909. He was never really actually in prison. That's a little bit too simplistic. Actually, Geronimo not only was a great war chief, but again, he did surrender to the United States and did assist the United States in their wars against the Spanish. He really hated the Spanish. I mean, he really hated the Spanish. As a matter of fact, his real name was not Geronimo. This is an interesting story. I'm not quite sure what his actual native name was. I knew it at one time. It was like Tahugasoa, I think is what it was. But he loved killing the Spanish. And what would happen is that the wounded, after his battles with the Spanish, during the various border skirmishes with Mexico, the Spanish would call out as they were dying. They would call for release, and the patron saint of death, sort of the Azrael, if you will, the dark angel, but the saint of death that is supposed to give you an easy death and guide your spirit to the pearly gates is actually Saint Jerome, and in the Roman Catholic iconicon. And so what happened is that when Geronimo, who used to just have so much fun, he used to take his spear and he'd stick it in the Spanish's or the Mexicans' bellies. And as they would die, they would go, Geronimo, Geronimo. And that was actually St. Jerome. That was the name that they would cry out as he was killing them. And so that's where he got the name Geronimo from, because it is the Catholic patron saint of death, which I suppose, is what they screamed when he would stab them and kill them with his lance, which I suppose is a better name than Chief. Much better name. Anyway, so I hope they get some justice for old Geronimo, and great warrior for his people, and or Big Chief, as he was also called as well. All right, this is huge. They're preparing for something. Biggest cover-up has whistleblowers freaking out and speaking out, and this is from Susan Duclos. Actually, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but from the All News Pipeline. And there's a huge cover-up going on by the United States government and the mainstream media, according to doctors, some of which are speaking out publicly about the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, where all zombie movies start, actually disappearing patients, with some concern that they will be blamed by family members of those vanished parents, or vanished patients. As a matter of fact, if you're watching Walking Dead, they're actually back in the city of Atlanta again for the last few episodes. But the cover-up, the cover-up happening now isn't just disappearing people, but includes some very strange deaths that are being attributed to a variety of causes, none of which have, quote, bleeding from orifices, unquote, listed as a symptom. Yet eyewitness accounts claim that these strange deaths did include bleeding from the mouth and nose and or other orifices. For example, a New York woman on the Ebola watch list 18 days after she returned from Guinea, where Ebola is raging out of control, drops dead in a beauty salon, bleeding from her nose and mouth, and yet authorities claim she had a heart attack. The Mayo Clinic lists heart attack symptoms here, which readers can see for themselves, does not actually include the bleeding. Many believe the media reports that Thomas Duncan was the first Ebola patient imported into the U.S. soil, but I will make the case that Duncan was simply the first Ebola victim to be reported, not the first case in the U.S. According to doctors that are now blowing the whistle on disappearing patients, many cases of these vanishing people were reportedly showing signs of malaria, as shown from an article on Alex Jones' site, InfoWars. Two specific excerpted quotes state, number one, it was back in October when I shared a story regarding some extremely powerful information that one of my medical doctor contacts stationed in Dallas had shared with me. The CDC, this individual said, was coming into hospitals and visiting patients who were reported to have signs of malaria. What's much more disturbing, however, is that the CDC was reportedly disappearing these patients, even going as far as to remove their actual records from the hospital database. It was then, after sharing this story on air, that the brave Dr. James Lorenzi called into the program and said that he had also witnessed similar circumstances, even going as far as to mention other key elements that I had not yet mentioned on air while conveying my report. In his experience and statement, Dr. Lorenzi discussed how medical professionals from the CDC were in fact looking at these cases of malaria in a very strange way, especially when these malaria cases exhibited symptoms that typically coincide with an Ebola infection. Duncan reportedly arrived in the U.S. on September 20th of 2014, but it was back in mid-September that reports came out about a ship docked in New Orleans carrying 6 crew members, one of which died, and the official cause was listed as malaria after having come from Ebola-stricken Africa. Now, according to a release from the CDC, the ship was reported to have traveled to a port in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and others in Africa, and officials immediately downplayed the likelihood that the sickness was related to an outbreak of Ebola in that part of the world. Downplayed is the key word in that quote. In fact, media organizations at the behest of the Obama administration have stopped reporting on suspected Ebola cases completely, as evidenced by the Kansas City Star report. So first they whip you up into a panic, then apparently somebody gets something they want from behind the scenes, and now they're suppressing all the information about it to apparently make you feel that it's not a problem anymore. And by the way, if you think that by Obama just opening the door to massive illegal immigration from across the border, do we or do we not think that this is going to bring waves and waves and waves of diseases into this country? Because we're not just talking about Mexico now. We're not talking about a second world country here. We're talking about Guatemala. We're talking about Honduras. We're talking about down into Costa Rica. We're talking about South America. So, that's a whole other point to immigration. I'm not sure if you realize this or not, but the whole other point of immigration is not only for ethnic homogeneity, but also, again, when you visit somebody's house, you just sign the guest book. It's just good manners. You bust in illegally through the window and then just, squat in their place. Bottom line is a lot of these checks for foreigners, number one, there's a reason why when we let immigrants into this country, the whole point is supposed to be you're supposed to be able to, number one, speak the language. None of these people do. Number two, have some kind of job and be able to support yourself. None of these people do. And number three, you're not supposed to be sick. Not supposed to have a disease. Was it who just sent me a text from Australia? Let me see. I'm just looking at my. Yeah, my buddy Monty Dean just sent me a text from Australia. And Monty says, how can letting more people into a country that owes $16 trillion, it's almost $18 trillion now, Monty, that owes almost $16 trillion be the best idea ever? I will tell you how. The United States, look, and I ain't for it or against it. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm giving you the social, political, economic ramifications of this. Since the glories of the Supreme Court, since the Supreme Court over the course of the last 40 years has now somehow dug into the Constitution and somehow found that our forefathers were so concerned about protecting the rights of homosexuals that now gay marriage is somehow sanctioned by the Constitution. Although, again, I understand it. I understand it because individuals have the free right to contract. Theoretically, you can't contract to do something illegal, and of course, massive numbers of these states have laws against homosexuality and homosexual behavior because it used to be believed that it destroyed society and, of course, spread disease. Apparently, we don't think that anymore. Actually, the American Psychiatric Association, as of about 15 years ago, considered homosexuality a psychological disease of some kind, a malediction. But obviously, we don't think that anymore. I guess we've all changed. But I'll tell you why they let all these people into the country. That as of 1973, when the Supreme Court reached into the Constitution and decided that somehow people had the right to get abortions, we performed close to, and these are just the abortions on the books, by the way, close to 60 million abortions in the United States up to now. 60 million. That's more people than we've lost in every single war this country has fought. And actually, that puts the death toll of abortions. Let me see. The Soviet Empire in 79 years managed to kill about 125 million people. That's just who we have on the record. 125 million people since the Bolshevik Empire took control. Then you've got Mao Zedong and his great cultural cleansing and the Gang of Four and all that. And we can actually put that, if you don't include the 3.5 million people that they murdered in Tibet, which is about half the indigenous population. It's called China. You can put China at about 60 million or so. 60 million people were killed. We didn't care too much about China because they were all their own people as well. And you might want to put the mass slaughter of Vietnamese on top of the Chinese as well. So if you look at Chinese communism and Soviet communism, and then, of course, the Nazis, well, okay, we've got their famous, that's a war that resulted in the deaths of about 15 million people, we believe. And if you believe the Holocaust thing, okay, let's throw 6 million Jews in there. That basically means that the Supreme Court and the concept of feminism, where, I can do what I want. I can do what I want. And abortion, that makes feminism actually possibly the most deadly and most dangerous philosophy of the 20th century. Right up there with Soviet communism, and look at it that way. So win, lose, or draw, if you're talking about abortions, and again, infer it or again it. Well, biblically, theoretically, according to, as far as I was taught in the Bible, you're not really alive until you take your first breath and are independent from your mother. And even then, you're the property of your parents. Remember in the old days, they didn't like you, they just nailed your foot to a board and left you out for the wolves. talk to Oedipus about that.
Hey, Sean.
Hang on, let me finish my thought. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is that they're letting all these people into the country because they're going to issue them Social Security cards, and then they're going to borrow against them. And what they're having to do is replace the missing population of the United States, and they're doing that by simply opening the borders. Yes, Stephen.
So here's an interesting thought, because we're talking about abortion policy for
population. Not really. We're talking about immigration. I didn't want to get on abortion policy, but go ahead.
I thought that's what we were talking about. Birth control was in there, and we're talking about. Forget it. If that's not exactly the topic, then I'm kind of going off on the wrong.
All right, go ahead. Then go. Have your tangent. Go ahead. What is it?
Okay. Well, my thought was, it's a good thought anyway, is that because people like to make this argument about abortions as like this self-governed kind of population control almost, but then at the same time I'm thinking, okay, you're claiming that the government is promoting abortions, but then at the same time they're also promoting parenthood too, because single mothers raising kids can get all sorts of government benefits as well. So sometimes a woman will have the incentive to to have a child out of wedlock or something to that effect, based on government benefits that do exist.
Okay.
So it's just a thought about like the motives of the government based on their programs, because that has a lot to do with the subject matter, I thought.
And who does that money usually go to?
Usually goes to the mother.
Yeah, but who are those mothers? Who are those mothers that are having babies in order to get more government welfare?
Catholics.
Catholics, really? Come on, be honest. Who are they? They're people in ghettos. They're people in lower income. They're primarily blacks and Hispanics. And in other words, what you're talking about is the government is actually then what? Is enforcing and supporting inbred ignorance at the lowest levels. So is that your argument?
Perhaps.
Okay, there it is. Anyway, that wasn't really my point. My point being is that they're having to replace the population. And all these people that are all, pissing and moaning about, oh, white people are going to be a minority by 2025 and all that. Well, I guess you should have had kids. Just go to Utah. Go to Utah. There's plenty of white kids with guns and food in Utah. And yes, Kevin Shaw is absolutely right. What does Geronimo yell when he jumps out of a plane? Does he yell me? So anyway, so there. Okay, I'm done with that story anyway. So yeah, there's this big rant about this guy who's. Let me see. It is kind of interesting. There's a guy who got on. This is kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of fun. I'm just going to read some of it because it's on Nasara, Republic Now, Galactic News. And if you go on Nasara, Republic Now, Galactic News, you will notice that is the primary pusher, if you will, of, they're going to revalue the dinar, and it's going to be all about it's they're going to make all kinds of money, and if you put $250 into dinar, it's going to be worth $1 million. And there's Tony Tuesday. There's Tony Tuesday who has his Dinar Tuesdays where this guy named Tony comes on. He's got a podcast or a phone call that you can tune into every Tuesday, and he's a very eloquent black guy who gets on there, and every week he explains some conspiracy theory as to why the dinar has not revalued. And, what happened and everything else. And this is kind of funny. One pissed off American. We the people have something to say. It's time. And he says, bullshit. What the hell is going on with this global reset, global currency? By the way, these are the things that are all pushed by the David Wilcox and the, Ben Fulford does talk about it, but the white hats and the black hats and all this. And, Sheldon Neidl, and they're all making these big predictions. And, unfortunately on Revolution Radio as well. I mean, we've had V, the Guerrilla Economist, come on and talk about this stuff. So here we go. He says, what the hell is going on with this global reset, global currency revaluation, fines and penalties, farm claims, J.R. Robinson, Herman and Herman, CMKX, Omega, and all the other prosperity programs? The latest information is saying next year, mid-January. What? Mid-January comes. It's now mid-March, and the cycle continues. We are getting played. You got to be kidding, right? This is a sick joke if you're playing one. You jackasses are not going to pull a Kuwait again. This is just wrong. You remember the statement made from the White House, not until I'm out of office, 2016, just great. Why would the world, who has been ramping up for this monumental occasion, working the rabbits being chased by wolverines, all of a sudden put the brakes on and stop in the middle of the train tracks with an engine bearing down on them. It's just bad wrong. Then we get this type of shite. I understand that these Red Dragon fellows think we Westerners are not spiritual enough to handle the money. Come again, say what? I cannot manage money, make my pickup payments. Hey, buddy, come see me in the alley. I'll show you some spirit. Who the hell is the one who would per any of my books? We have all of our books back in stock. I've got Black Seraph. I've got Dark Prophet, Veil of the Antichrist. We've got Sands of Time Volume 1, Sands of Time Volume 2. If you would like to send them as a Christmas gift, and you want to order them from off our website, we will Christmas wrap it for you. My wife she went to the store, she's got all the stuff, she loves doing it. We will Christmas wrap a book for you and send it to whomever you like as a gift. Any of my books, Black Seraph, which I'm working on a screenplay right now for Black Seraph with Sean Stone, the son of Oliver Stone. So that should be fun. And Veil of the Antichrist, which is a fantastic book. If you want to know everything about what's going on in the Middle East, this book predicted what was going down back in 2009. And Veil of the Antichrist predicts the coming of the third great Antichrist. We just took all of the biblical and Nostradamus predictions of the third Antichrist, along with all the stuff in the Quran about the 12th Imam, and I put it together into a action-adventure novel as to what the church would do. And, of course, Sands of Time, 5-star on Amazon, one of the greatest books you'll ever read. People are buying stacks of these to give away to their friends and family. So check out our website, strangeuniverseradio.com. Also, we've got our YouTube channel is coming, so just a little patience with us, but it's going to be the actual Strange Universe Radio YouTube channel, so you'll be able to get YouTube clips, YouTube videos, of yours truly, of lectures and all kinds of things up there, and also of this radio program, all the archives of this show at some point. Also, please remember we've got a couple of cruises coming up. We've got the Spirit of Alaska holistic cruise on Royal Caribbean, so you're invited to join me on the Spirit of Alaska. There's only 90 rooms left. This entire thing, like 3,000 rooms, is almost completely sold out. So it'll take place on June 12th to the 19th, 2015, on the incredible Royal Caribbean Jewel of the Sea, sailing from Seattle, Washington to the stunning glaciers of Alaska. And our Spirit of Alaska cruise and seminar at sea takes place right on our luxury cruise ship during our 7-day cruise, and the conference rooms on the ship. It's every basically great seminar speaker and author and writer that you've ever heard of is all going to be there. We've got indigenous Alaskan culture and discover the tradition of shamanism in Alaska, 7 days of bliss to sail into higher consciousness and spiritual awakening. We're going to have yoga, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, raw food, participate in awesome spiritual workshops, view the crisp, starlit Alaskan sky with night vision goggles to basically see the UFOs and the wars in space. And we also have we've got a fantastic LA cruise coming up too over Valentine's Day. So check out spiritualcruise.com. That's spiritualcruise.com. With Dr. Susan Shepsky of Divine Revelations, and that's going to be February 14th, I think, through the 21st or so. So we've got those. So anything else? Buy my book, Black Seraph, Dark Prophet, Veil of the Antichrist, and Sands of Time Volume 1 and Volume 2. And let's take some calls. I was going to read a little bit more of this guy's rant, but we've got people on the phone. So go ahead. Who do we got calling us? Let's start with 702. 702. Who dat and where you at?
702 is long gone. It's going to be 336 is first.
336. Hey, boss. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Sean? This is Brian calling from a different number. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good. I can probably guess, but what's on your mind?
I just wanted to say, first of all, I picked up the call when you started talking about the archives and everything. Okay. Easy way to donate right there, and you get everything you ever want to hear, especially Strange Universe on that. And I can't mention enough. I still thank you for, Sands of Time on the audiobook. It's great to listen to when you're busy with the family and you don't have much time to read anymore, and you can just listen to it on your phone or something. So, anyway, I thought I might, make the listeners wonder about what is your opinion on the age-old question of which came first, the chicken or the egg? And my point is I'm trying to bring it around to the fractal universe theory.
Okay. Why don't you just give me your fractal universe theory, and what came first, chicken or the egg? I don't know, the chicken. It would have to be the chicken, wouldn't it?
Right, because he's going to incubate the egg, right? But then that means a chicken just popped into existence. Yeah. So my question is I thought about this quite a while ago, and then I learned, I don't know, there's a YouTube video, an old video. It must be put on YouTube from VHS or something, but it's called The Powers of 10, spelled out Ten. The Powers of 10, and it pretty much zooms out all the way to the farthest point, by the 10th power.
Oh, I remember this. They showed us this in high school. This was like a high school science video.
And then it zoomed all the way back in, and I've always thought, who's to say that the nucleus of an atom couldn't be another universe,
right,
or the quark of a nucleus of an atom, because it zooms all the way back in through the cells and everything on that video.
I saw this. They used to show this in high school. This was it's like years old. Yeah, this is The Power of 10. It shows a guy sleeping on a blanket, I think it is, and they pull out, and it goes, by 10, and then 10, and then 10, and they take you outside the universe, and it goes back in, and then it goes to the guy, and then it goes into his skin, and to the cells, and all the way down to the atom. Yeah, it's amazing. That's a great video.
So, like the chicken, did the chicken just pop into existence? Did humanity just pop into existence? Or have we just always been here on a fractal scale? Always. We've just been here. Period.
Sean,
no
can
Big
I
Bang
compliment
Theory,
you
none of that
before you
crap.
answer that question?
Okay.
I need to get off this because
Go ahead,
it's a
that's
cell
fine.
phone. I don't want it up to my brain.
That's
I just
fine.
wanted to tell you, you got the best radio show, period. Nothing but love and respect. I'm signing off so your caller can go back to busyness. Peace, brother.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks. And a lot of other people think so too. Our numbers have been crazy good, and we just want to let you know that even though we started out with a very small show and about 47 people or so, is that kidding around. I talk about listeners 1 through 47 and all that, but we are actually, Strange Universe Radio is the #1 radio talk show on the internet now. Actually, Alex Jones is kind of weird because Alex, in my opinion, does a whole bunch of tricks. He's got a lot of robocaller things and a lot of things that they click buttons to make it seem like there's more people listening to the program, so he's always up there around 5 or 6 or so. But actually, our show, out of 10,000 internet stations worldwide, 10,000, mind you, our program is, we're up there about 27 now, actually. We're 27th on Earth, on the planet, and we've got a pretty much regular weekly audience of about 1.5 million people or so. So, and I just want to thank every one of you that calls into the show, that gets involved in the show, that loves the show, because it's been you that's built it. It's been your concepts, your ideas, your wisdom, your grace, your truth, and your friendship that has been the core of what has become a truly global phenomenon, and I have all of you to thank for that. Okay, so Brian, we're back to The Power of 10 and fractal universes, and that's kind of a great way to end a Friday. It's sort of like a Matthew McConaughey. All right. We burst through a wormhole and found a new planet. Let's light up a bowl, bro. So.
All right.
So are you done with your fractal aspect? And actually, since the Big Bang Theory, in my opinion, all of the scientists that I think are worth anything have now said that basically Einstein is bunk, that E=mc² is crap, that the Big Bang Theory has been completely disproven over and over and over again. Matter of fact, the scientist that I was just talking to, this was a guy who was tasked by the United States government to actually decipher, or should I say decode or back engineer all of the Nazi super secret weapons. And he was talking about how the real universe is basically, it's made up of two particles. One is a ball, and one is a ball with a hole in it, which is basically a toroid tube. And, how he says, well, Big Bang is crap and that E=mc² is crap. And now we're realizing that the universe basically just kind of phased into existence from another vibratory frequency, that like it was all kind of here at once. And, his theory of toroid tubes and all that explains time and space and all that. Look, 10 years from now, the one thing about science that we know is that, sorry, my kitten is stuck on the screen. There we go. One thing about science that we know is that in another 10 years, everything that we know about science is going to be completely wrong. So, that's the one great thing about being able to look back in time, is we laugh at all these people in the past who had these ridiculous notions of what science was, what medicine was, and but we're, thanks to people like you, Brian, we're jumping into that next phase where we're realizing that the universe is in fact holographic, that every part of the universe exists in the smallest piece of the universe, which is what's so great about the reality that we live in.
Sean.
Well, yeah, pretty much based on that 1 Power of 10 video on YouTube, and just looking in on a fractal. It's a giant pattern. I know you know what it is, but for all the listeners, it just infinitely repeats itself. So who's to say that, each nucleus or quark of an atom is not a whole of the universe, and it just goes in on itself forever, and that's just how it is.
Indeed. Steve, you want to say?
Who knows?
Steve?
I was going to say that we were traveling through wormholes before Matthew McConaughey was paid to travel through wormholes.
I just think it's so funny that DeGrasse Tyson has to give a whole thing on the scientific inaccuracies of Interstellar, and not starting with, okay, number one, Matthew McConaughey is playing an astrophysicist who's in fact an astronaut who goes through a wormhole. I think that's number one. And Anne Hathaway, how'd you get so many teeth? Okay, Brian, well, thanks for playing, man. And
all right. Yeah, I got to go to pizza. All right. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Okay, talk to you later. All right. And actually, it's really funny, this tirade by this guy. Go to Nassau Republic now, Galactic News, and obviously he listens to. I'm fine. Do we have 507 on still, or is that the gentleman that came on?
No. 507 is here.
Okay, 507. Let's talk to you. Get it in before the end of the week.
Hey, Sean, it's Rob in Minnesota, new listener. So, have you breached 50 yet, or does that make me number 48?
You can be 48. You want to be 48? I think you're 48.
I don't care.
I'd be happy to make you like 51, and then we can fill in the other guys. But right now, you'd be like listener 48. So, anyway, welcome.
Well, okay. How about 54? I just born in 54. I just celebrated my 60th here on Monday. So, anyway,
listener 54. You are now Domino Viscus Poto. You are now number 54. Go ahead.
54. Okay. Yeah, you're talking about Geronimo, and that got me somewhat memory tripping here. I made I think it was 2002. I was down at Key West and went out to Fort Tortugas National
Tortuga?
Park.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. Tortugas.
Yeah, in Fort Jefferson. And while I went on the tour there, they said it was a fort that had never been fired on in anger. And so, in other words, nobody had ever attacked this fort. And they had two famous prisoners there. One was Dr. Mudd, and the other was Geronimo.
Yep.
And I just looked it up online, and they say that Geronimo was actually imprisoned at Fort Pickens, I guess.
Okay.
But anyway, and then I've got this thing about Florida forts, and they got all these forts that were never attacked. And I'm kind of going,
never attacked. We're really part of the Civil War. They basically sat down and their stuff. Geronimo got to wander around, by the way. He wasn't, when they say imprisoned, Geronimo got a little spot of land, and he got to have his wives, and they did use him to fight against the Spanish at some point, against the Mexicans actually coming across the border. And little beknownst, actually, Geronimo actually died a born again Christian. That's a point that people make, that he converted to Christianity by the end of his life, and so it's
damn, they got him.
Yeah, I know they got him. But he was, as I said, he was a great warrior who actually got his name from the fact that he liked to kill the Spanish, and they used to yell Geronimo or Jerome when they died. That's probably one of the facts that you looked up about him. Yes.
Now, if I was, part of his family, you know what I would do? I would sit out with my war drums and do the Indian dance and just sit right in front of Skull and Bones and just day in, day night sit out there with my big drum and pound on it, and just do the dance thing. They don't like to have attention drawn to them, so just go ahead and do the war drums, do the dance, and just keep it going until they say, here's the bones, get lost, and that's how I'd handle it, I guess.
There you go. Well, and that's supposedly part of the initiation experiences. You're supposed to go rob a grave, and that's supposedly what I think Prescott Bush was the one. I'm not sure if it was George Bush Sr., but I think it was Prescott Bush was the one that supposedly then stole the head of Geronimo, and then they've used it at the at Yale, actually not Harvard, but they used it at Yale for Skull and Bones for all that time. All right, well, thank you, listener 54. Anything else you want to say?
That's just one question
Sure.
about horoscopes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a scorpion,
Right.
and according to the Chinese, I'm a horse.
Okay.
Do the two play together? Is there any, can you use the two together, or what the heck?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, my wife is a scorpion horse. So, so it's the Chinese horoscopes actually are. It's not just the year, but there's an analysis of the year, and then what hour that you're born in, because there's different hours are actually split up between the animals as well. Fire horses are. You're not a fire horse, actually. A fire horse would be 66, so you'd probably be you'd be an earth horse. So because they divide the animals up. There's earth, there's fire, there's water, there's metal, and so every 60 years it goes by a different cycle. So you would actually be an earth horse, and that directly relates to and Scorpio is, once again, it means that your drive towards mysticism, towards being interested in the unusual, the bizarre, the exciting, if you will, the metaphysical, is a very, very strong drive in your life, because Scorpio represents not only sex and death, but also mystical experiences, shamanistic experiences, as an example. And the horse is a very powerful driver. As a matter of fact, the horse beat. It's funny that you call it about Native Americanisms, is because the horse beat is. That's what they call the horse beat, actually, in Native American drum ceremonies. So it's all very possible. It means that the horse transports you into your dreams and into very, very powerful dream states for you. That your dreams come true, literally, and that you have a very, very powerful and very active imagination as you jump on the horse of imagination that then drives you into the realm of spirit. Does that make sense?
It does.
So there you go.
I thank you very much. It's been
You're welcome. Thank you, listener 54. Yeah. So thanks for calling from Minnesota. Thanks for listening to the show.
Okay, bye now.
So here we go. Nassau Republic News. This guy's kind of funny. He says when he talks about the he says I understand those Red Dragon fellows think that we Westerners are not spiritual enough to handle the money. Come again? You say what? I cannot, because the Red Dragons are supposedly have this $1 trillion fund that they're going to have. They're going to dump on everybody. He says I cannot manage money, make my pickup payments. Hey buddy, come see me in an alley. I'll show you some spirit. Who the hell is the one who would pull this plug? Stupid. What an arrogant statement by some Red Dragon spokesperson to say Westerners are not spiritual enough. You understand that I know more about the Bible and have had these experiences. What bugs me even more is the good folks here in America have been screwed or duped by politicians for years, and now we get our time to feed our families, friends, hell, the crappy neighbor if need be. We get to have unalienable rights, not those privileges that the U.S. Corp folks claim. And you royals think that you are not. You royals think that we are not spiritual. So why you Chinese royals stop this from happening? You worried about some threat by the bad guys? Hell, turn them over to us, good old boys. We'll take care of business. We'll put those folks to work. We got lots of garages to clean out. They should do just fine pickup garage, since they know all about feeding garage to us over the last couple of years. Oh, garbage. I'm sorry. Feeding garbage to us over the last couple hundred years. Hell, good hard work for them will help them understand what the hell we've been doing to support their lifestyles of unlimited medical, unlimited expenses, unlimited travel, unlimited lives, unlimited pay, and all the other shite. My smart body says indentured servants, yeah, that'd be good. I want first pick on one of those shite-head presidents to work with me. I'll help him understand. I will even let him sleep in one of the animal barns, not under bridges or overpasses or in cardboard boxes. Well, as I see it, this Pope Francis, this shite is your problem too, based on the secret Treaty of Verona of 1213, where you Pope types vowed to stop all representative systems, a.k.a. republics, and upon which the laws of today are based on Roman law, canon law. You think me stupid? Hell no. And these laws set how corporations work. You got to step in and fix this crap. For you, Pope, the thought that comes to me is, what would Jesus do? So anyway, he goes on like that for an entire page of stuff here, where he says, enough of this. I need money. I got family needs help. I got retired military family needs help. The weather wars are screwing up my farms. and all the exercise and all the excise water and snow. They keep starving the West Coast with no water to destroy the food production, since 80% of the food comes from the southwestern coast. The stopping of the release of wealth to his people of the world is crazy. It seems that all the parties are playing into their hands of evil. So I got to ask the question, since when, oh one grandfather, ever listened to and comply with the evil ones? These characters are nuts, crazy, focused on staying in power and destroying America by any means possible, industrially, financially, morally, ethically, spiritually, and any other Lee you can think of. The whole world sees this happening. Why don't you? Oh, the media is controlling the airwaves. Oh, yeah. We got to have change now to rid us of the controllers, the evil ones, etc. I want God's blessing for you, our land, our planet, our humanity, our overall health. Jeremiah 29:11 from the Bible says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Another meaning is shalom. This is time for we the people to win. To all my friends around the world, we stand in one voice. It is time to rid us of the evil on planet Earth. Your people request freedom from evil. One pissed off America, signing off for now. Remember, you too believe the same way, just scared to say so or do. So let's change the world together. Yours truly, one pissed off American. So there you go. And that's almost the end of the show, actually. I think I might have... I was hoping to kind of end the program with that, but I guess not. All right, so there we go. That's the... Yep, there it is. Okay, so thank you so much for being with us. You know, the love you take is equal to the love you make. All is one. Life has purpose. God is love. That means we're all biologically and chemically and atomically connected to each other, that no matter what's happened to you throughout your life, you're in the exact same place you need to be the hero that you are. And if God is love, then that means the prima level of the universe is for the greatest, highest good of every